Alright. Time for the split walkthrough. Okay, I'm going to be using some terms from the bind walkthrough. If you haven't seen the bind walkthrough, go check it out. But for those terms, I'll just re-explain them if you haven't seen the bind walkthrough. Alright. First off, we're in defender side spawn. Defender side spawn is commonly referred to as CT. That's a term that transfers from Counter-Strike. It just means counter-terrorist. It's just the side that always defended in Counter-Strike. So that's, yeah, CT. So if you ever hear somebody calling CT, it means that somebody's like in this general vicinity back here. So like if you're on A site and they call CT, they're probably like back here. We'll actually start with A site for this. So this here, this is a heaven. So heaven, again, on bind and actually, yeah, haven as well. Heaven is essentially the term that's used for the highest point looking over a bomb site. So that's why we're all the way up here and we can see the bomb site right there. So this is heaven. This right here, this little section that you like walk out onto, kind of sounds like metal. This is called rafters. So if you kind of hear this audio cue, or if you just see somebody here, you can call rafters. Walking around here, these are ropes or zips. They're kind of called either one. But yeah, if somebody's in this vicinity and on these bad boys coming up to heaven, you're gonna call zips or ropes. And then this like section here up into there is vents. So a lot of the time people are gonna call this little section, this little like down here section, is they're calling ropes or zips, and then this up here is vents. But you know, if you know that they're somewhere around here, calling vents is usually good enough, unless you know for sure they're like right here. But that's zips. This over here is ramp or ramps, whatever you want to call it, but it's ramp, A ramps. So ramps also has like a metal audio cue, so you can kind of hear when they're moving up this way. This is a very popular place to push from the attacker's side. Also a very popular place to hold at the start because the barrier I think is like right here, and so you can swing out, check that side right there. This over here where this ult orb is, this is a main. So if somebody's, you know, if you have a fucking bunch of people rushing on attack side this way, you can call a main that they're rushing through. Same for this little corridor right here. This is one of two ult orbs on the map, the other one being over by the B site, which I'll show you. This is the A main cubby. Cubbies, talk about this in bind, but cubbies are essentially just little like inlets in a wall somewhere. And so this would be the A main cubby right here. Very popular place to kind of hold as you're waiting to play for a pick on attack. This over here, so under heaven, this is hell right here. Very common place to have on different maps. So basically, and obviously, I mean, the term itself is pretty obvious and straightforward, but hell is just under heaven. We're so creative in this fucking community, bro. This is the A bomb site here. So this little bad boy that looks like a mall directory is called default box. I've heard it called blue box a couple of times, but most of the time it's just default box. This would be over here, would kind of be back site. This kind of area here. A lot of the time if they're here, you're probably just going to call behind default box, but if they're here in this corner, you'll call backside. This little bad boy over here, this is called elbow. Elbow is also a kind of a universal term on a lot of bomb sites where you just have an L-shaped like corridor in like the corner of a site. This is what you would refer to as elbow. Popular place for CT to hold if the attackers have already pushed onto the site. Kind of play safe, check different angles, that kind of stuff. This is screens for obvious reasons, because there's screens. Another popular place to hold for CT and kind of watch, especially if you're holding a long range weapon, maybe a vandal, even like this. If you're holding an op and you're on A, this is probably where you're holding, because you just get a great line of sight to A main crossing over to ramps and flushing on the site. Pretty phenomenal, especially if you have somebody that can smoke off A main right there and force them to commit out into it by the ult orb. Just easy fucking pop, that kind of stuff. Cool. That is the A bomb site. Play over here to B. This section where you're hearing the dirt, audio cue. This is called alley, or back alley. Some people just call it CT because technically it is on the CT side still. But if you want to get hyper specific about where they are and you hear the dirt cue, the dirt audio cue, they're in alley. It's a very popular place to call. It's a hugely popular rotation for CT because alley leads both up here to look over the bomb site and back here to walk onto the bomb site. So alley, this is a super popular place and very important place to hold if you've taken a bomb site already. These, I didn't show this on A, but these bad boys, these are called double boxes. So if you ever see something that's this height that people like Jet and Omen can get up onto, these are double boxes. So these are the double boxes on B bomb site. This right here, this platform is where you're allowed to plant on the site. So this is the technical site. Down here and down here you cannot plant. So this bad boy, this is called default box. Just like I was saying, the blue little mall directory on the other one is called default box. To explain, default box is essentially the box that's on the site where you by default plant there most of the time. Again, super original with the names. What I mean by that is the most common plant space on split is right here. So once you've come out of this way onto the bomb site, you plant right here, your team covers you, and then you back off and watch it. This here, this is considered backsite for B. So this little inlet over here. Technically, I guess any of this could be backsite, but when they call backsite, it's most of the time going to be here, holding here and watching around this way. This, nobody usually calls this, but when they do, I've heard it called shack or hut. But honestly, if they're over here by the shack, you're probably just going to call backside anyway, so it's not too big of a deal. This would be the double boxes or the stacks outside of here, which is called garage, and I'll explain that in a sec. But this is actually a popular place for people like Jet, Omen, and Raze to hold, because they can actually get on top of this. They can get on top of this second one and hold here. So super popular place for people that can get up there to hold for when attackers are flushing through here. This on the map, it's called B main, but the more common term for it is garage. I've really only heard a couple of people call it B main. Most people are just going to call it garage. Garage, we're super original again because there's cars and garage doors and stuff. Second old torb right here. This would be the garage cubby, right? Like the inlet inside garage. This is actually a sneaky off angle to hold if you're on defense and you know that they're kind of chilling out there. You can actually hold this, especially on somebody like Omen. You can actually just TP over there, which is kind of cool. These would be pallets. Nobody really calls these though because it's not a popular place to hide behind, but these are pallets right here. Back to the site. This is pretty commonly referred to as pillar. So if you know somebody is in backside over here, but specifically like right here, peeking this angle behind this, you can call behind pillar. Pretty popular place for the attackers to hold right here and then in backside for once they've planted on default box, because defense is going to be coming from up here most likely. This is hell right here. So this is and this is going to lead right into the fact that that is heaven. So this is hell. This is a great place if you're coming from heaven. This is a perfect place to flush utility into, because if somebody is chilling here or maybe here waiting for you to push out, a raise grenade or a molly can get them to pop out so you can get a clean headshot off on them. This would be the B zips or ropes, or B heaven zips or ropes, whatever you want to call it. If you're hearing this noise over in this general vicinity, it's this, because the only other ropes that are in the game are the ones that I showed you first over there and then some other ones over there. So if you hear it in this general vicinity of B bomb site, it's right here. This is A heaven, or sorry, B heaven, right here. So the point that looks over the bomb site. And then out here, same metal sound so that when you walk onto it, rafters. So both bomb sites on split have a rafters and a heaven and a hell, which is kind of cool. And then you have these stairs over here that I showed you before. These can just be called like heaven stairs, be heaven stairs, whatever you want to call them, that lead right into alley again and CT spawn. So those are the sites. And then now we can talk about mid control. Mid is very popular because it's kind of like whoever controls mid kind of controls the round. This little cubby right here is called mail, because of the mailboxes. Super popular place for defenders to hold right here and kind of watch the mid area. And then here is vents, because it says ventilation. So, you know, again, extremely creative. Split got changed recently. I want to say like a week and a half ago, maybe. I don't know. There was a patch that moved the barrier for defenders. So before it used to be right here, and you could actually just hold here and then fucking mob it. They thought that was too broken, so they moved the defenders like spawn barriers to here in the vents door. Actually, I guess I could just switch teams and show you. Hold on. This is where the new barrier is for the B side of mid. So you cannot start in male or up in like their face over there now. This is kind of ambiguous about what it's called. The most popular term I've heard is either green cubby, green room, green corner, green wall. Anything that has to do with green essentially is the most popular thing I've heard. These are the mid double boxes right here. This pocket is a pretty popular place for people to try to sneak into and get like pot shots off into. That's frog for obvious reasons. And then we have the two sides of mid here. The barriers for attackers are right here and right here. This is called market. This like whole little area right here is called market. Some people, and you're gonna hear this too, some people are gonna call this specific part of market ramen, because I think it's a ramen shop. Yeah, I think it's just like, yeah, it's a ramen shop. So people will call this ramen, but this whole section here is market that leads out into garage. Mid double boxes, frog. These with this really obnoxiously loud sound. This is sewers. So sewers connects all the way to, spoilers, a main. This is the third set of ropes or zips that are here. So this is where the barrier would be for attackers that are moving on to A site. So sewers connects A and mid, and then you have market that connects B and mid. So then you have T spawn over here. So T meaning terrorists from Counter-Strike, or just attackers spawn, whatever you prefer, I guess. As far as attacking, A, popular places that people are going to hold that you want to check are going to be right up in your face here, so close right in A main here, on top of the ramps like I was showing you before. So you want to check this corner, you want to check this corner for sure. Sometimes you can get people like Omen TPing to this left corner over here, or actually technically Omen can TP to that corner right there as well. So, but not as much. You're not going to have somebody that's that aggro. So here, here, here. And then here's where you have to make your decision. If you have somebody that has smokes, Brimstone or Omen, they're going to need to make a decision on where they're going to smoke. And that's going to decide how you push A. You can either smoke off ramps.
Cover going out.
And then heaven maybe.
Shadows
and then start making your push on the site through A main here. You're going to make sure you check rafters right here, and hell, very popular places to hold. You're going to want to make sure somebody with maybe a longer range weapon is checking screens, because people will hold there, like I said, especially with an op. And then as you move on to the site before the smokes go down, you're going to want to check back here around elbow area, and then definitely back site as well, because some people will hold there. Then once you've moved on to site, you can start planting wherever. You can plant behind the default box if you guys know you're going to be holding kind of back here. If you guys have control of heaven, you're going to want to plant in the front so you can see the bomb, yada yada. The other option for pushing this would be you can smoke off A main and move up into ramps. Especially if you got to pick on the person that was holding ramps. If you got to pick on this person, you smoke off A main and rush this, take heaven control. Having heaven control is huge, because then you can watch the rotation from mid, the rotation from B, and you can take a look at whoever's on site. Big plays. And then if you have heaven control, like I said before, planting where you can see it in the front of the site is always big brain. As far as holding on CT, again, this popular place to hold for sure. Right here up in their face, if you know you can hit your shots, you can swing this and try to get some shots off of them rushing. You can hold Hell. You can hold Rafters. You can hold Heaven, watching A main. You can hold screens, especially with a long range weapon, like I said before. You can hold Elbow right here. This is, I personally like this spot a lot, especially with a rifle, because you can get pot shots off and then move your way through Elbow as they're rushing on the site very safely, which is nice. And they kind of have to full commit to be able to see you in Elbow. Pretty dank. Or if you want to play a little bit different, some off angles, maybe you can hold this kind of close angle here. Maybe try to swing or wait till they push, get a kill, maybe fall back to default or back sight. The issue with this is you don't have a lot of safety here. So if you know you can hit your shots, fuck it. This is a great off angle to hold. Bop, bop, fall back. Otherwise, if you'd like to play more safe, maybe play like Elbow. Bottom, top, naturally, because of elevation. So depending on where you're coming from, because you can actually start in sewers or in market, depending on where you went from T-spawn. Mid is pretty key in this game unless you're doing like a site rush, but holding mid is great because then you get to decide where you want to go, especially based off of who you picked off. But when nowadays with the new updates, vents is a very popular place to start putting your utility out into, because somebody's guaranteed to be in here. It wasn't like that before where somebody was guaranteed to be in vents. Sometimes they would be maybe here or right here or whatever, but like guaranteed, unless they just didn't put anybody in here at all. If somebody's holding this side of mid, they're in vents because of where the barrier is. That being said, putting a smoke there or throwing a raise grenade or a molly in there or even a crispy, big brain, because what that allows you to do is essentially void that defender of any purpose for a couple of seconds while you push up and see who's in mail room or maybe falling back to be Heaven. The other thing you can do is have somebody on sewers, the sewers side of mid, peeking out and checking mailroom while you're doing that. Where you place your utility also kind of depends on where you want to push. Do you want to push a B? Great. Smoke off or wall off or crispy off or something vents so that whoever's holding here is null and void of purpose for a second. If you're going to push A through vents, especially if you got to pick on the person in vents, focus your utility here so that they can't do much about it. Especially if you have maybe a Sage. Pushing through mid is great with a Sage because she can wall off here if you guys are pushing A. She can wall off vents if you guys are pushing B. And you've now forced the enemy to now go through CT from A in order to get to the B site. Big brain. When holding mid, you're going to be holding from vents unless you want to be ballsy. And as soon as the barrier goes up, run over to here and hold this off angle. You're going to be holding vents otherwise. What that means is, just like I said before, attackers are going to spam utility and vents most likely now. Unless you know you can get a clean headshot off first, probably don't hold this out in the open like this. Probably hold maybe back, peek, maybe even back here if they're throwing like raise grenades and shit. For B-side Heaven, you're okay to drop down into mail before anybody really gets a crazy shot off on you. Unless they have somebody that just ran out. But otherwise, this is a great place to hold because now you have a crossfire on market and now sewers. Sage is a very popular pick for mid because the fact that she can crispy off the attack twice and then wall off right here means that you've delayed for quite a while. So very popular place for Sage to hold on this map. Not saying that she always has to hold mid, but it's a good place for her to hold. For B, popular places to hold. I mean, a lot of the time with B, because you really only have garage to worry about, you're only going to have one person anchoring B site. Unlike A, where there's a lot more angles to watch and different directions you can take, the only way to get onto B, unless you took mid, is through garage. What that means is you have people like Cypher, Viper, Sage, anybody that can anchor a site with their utility and delay the enemy is going to hold this by themselves. What that means for attackers is that they are going to have to do one of two things. Either get a good pick and either bait utility and then get a good pick off of the person holding and anchoring B, or they're going to have to rush the fuck out of it. That means that they just send all 5 people out here, use some utility to maybe block off heaven, and then come bombard whoever is holding it. Very rarely are you ever going to hold more than one person holding B, unless you guys have been rushing B like the whole game, then they're going to stack it, but usually just one person holding B. Popular angles to be checking and people that hold on defender side. This off angle right here, this like close right, is not super popular, but people do hold it sometimes, so, you know, peeking right here. This is an extremely popular place to hold, right behind the double boxes, because you really have to commit out in order to check it. Another really popular place to hold is going to be default box, because you can peek the pillar and come back and play safe around here, or behind the little shack thing in backside. Use this as your cover, get some pot shots. Only issue with this is that it's hard to cross over to safety without them seeing you. Well, thanks for watching. Go watch the bind video. Appreciate it. Love you guys. Bye.